Welcome to the R&R Show. Sit back and relax and enjoy the best little sports show ever. I'm your host, Michael Roope, and on the other side of this camera is my co-host, William Rumsey. Hello, William.
Who day?
All right. Well, hey, not. It's a sad day. You should have said sad day.
Well, yeah, no, I'm still on that Bengal high. Bengal high, buddy.
Well, I get it, but William and I thought we should get together because this is one of the sadder days that I know I personally have experienced. And William, I know that you had a little soft spot for Tommy Terrific also. And it's a sad day in the football world because we don't get a blush nearly as much.
No.
Tommy Terrific, out on the field anymore as of today.
Yeah, it is definitely a sad day. He's a rare breed. Obviously with his stats and what he's done for the game of football. I mean, it's crazy to think like I remember back when he started for New England and he got hurt, took over for Drew Bledsoe. But my kind of first memory of Tom Brady now, 22 years later, is I remember that I was at Ball State in a fraternity in my fraternity house with, 20 other crazy guys. In his first Super Bowl to now, his games, I can barely stay awake till 9:30 at night. It's just that's his longevity, and it's crazy. It's a sad day.
It really is, and coming in as it's been well documented, 6th rounder, blah blah blah, but right out of the gate, defying odds, right out of the gate by beating the greatest show on turf.
Mm-hmm.
One of the craziest stats that you'll ever see is the man was a starter for 20. He played 22 years, but he's a starter for 20 years. He went to 10 Super Bowls during those 20. I mean, half of the time he was a starter, he went to the Super Bowl. And it wasn't like a short career, like 8-year career, and he went 4. We're talking 20 years as a starter, and he goes to the Super Bowl 10 times. And I didn't look it up, but I think probably half of those other times he was probably at least in the AFC or NFC championship.
Right. Yeah, I mean, how many I was looking at his stats, or how many MVP awards did he win? What was it?
I want to
say he won it 3 times.
I was going to say 3, and I think he won the Super Bowl MVP 4 times, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 4.
5. He won it 5.
5.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, and he could very well easily have won it this year. I mean, he threw the most TD passes this year. The Bucs were good.
He still might. That hasn't come out yet.
No. I mean, he's definitely.
Does it come out this week?
I believe it's the week before the Super Bowl. I mean, it's probably down to him and Rodgers. I would say Rodgers, with his whatever this year with the media relations.
Sentimental votes. I don't know if all the votes have been tallied, but if the votes have not been tallied yet, they may lean towards Tommy Terrific to get him out one more time on a high.
So were you surprised by this retirement?
I was. And I'll tell you why I was surprised, William, because he had always said his goal was to play till 45.
Mm-hmm.
That was his goal. He's all about goals.
Mm-hmm.
And he's 44 currently.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't turn 45, I don't believe, until August. So that being said, I was shocked. Now, I will say that I think the whole Antonio Brown debacle took its toll on him, and I think it showed. And then I think when Antonio was dissing him, and then Alex Guerrero and all that, I think he's just like, you know what? I don't even think I need to deal with all this.
But why? Why did he let a person like Antonio Brown get under his skin?
But also, I don't know. Is the whole coaching staff going to stay in place? Did Leftwich? I don't know.
Well, I knew Leftwich was up for the Jacksonville job, and I don't think they've named a coach down there yet.
Okay, and I think like the defensive coordinator was getting some love too.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I know there's going to be, again, they were up against the cap just to squeeze all those guys in last year. They're going to be up against it again because Godwin was only on a what's it called, where they tender, they average it out. They franchised him, I believe. So again, I don't know. I think he was just a little worried.
I just hate to hear the fact that a douchebag like Antonio Brown is what tumbled, crumbled the dynasty of Tom Brady.
I don't think it was solely, but I just
There's
think
probably a lot that we don't know.
a lot of stuff, and I'm sure some of that stuff will start to leak and come out. But I did hear this right before we got on air tonight. I did see that he is signing a 1-day contract with the Patriots.
Is that confirmed?
That is confirmed.
Okay.
So, I think he probably did that after maybe forgetting to mention the Patriots in his farewell speech. Again, a lot of stuff probably going through his head, but you thought after his 8-page letter, the Patriots would have made maybe a small, little slice in there.
Yeah. So thinking of American team sports throughout, the last 100 years or since the inception of team sports, and what is his leg? I mean, obviously, I think we put him up there with Babe Ruth, Michael Jordan, Tiger Woods. I mean, is that?
I saw some crazy stat. Like, I think Jordan, he had played, I want to say, I saw something like 13 years. He won 6 titles. Like Gretzky had won so many titles in place. I mean, like those 3 are always at the forefront. Jordan, Gretzky, and now Brady. Now, I would say Bill Russell would be in that. Now, obviously, he doesn't get as much of the limelight because
Will Chamberlain.
Yeah, I mean, you had Wilt was probably the overall better player, but obviously Bill got more of the rings. So, that takes a little bit of the shine. Tom's done it with, if you just remember, come the early years, Tom had no weapons. And when I say no weapons,
I agree.
He was doing it with Deion Branch, David Patton. We had, Danny Woodhead. I mean, these were some of the guys that it was just a mismatch of just garbage. Are you still there, William? Oh,
I'm
sorry.
Yep.
I backed out there for a second, but he had like a mismatch of just characters. It was amazing that he would do the things he did. I think it was more of a defensive laden team early on, but man, and I will tell you my favorite when I was always a fan of Brady, but and I always knew he was great, but I was a huge Randy Moss fan. I was like, I loved Randy Moss all my whole life. When they made that trade to get Randy, and I knew Tom was great, but also I was on the Randy bandwagon still, and I thought he was going to have a great year, but I knew Wes Welker before like anybody else knew Wes Welker. I knew
before anybody else. Oh,
well, I knew how good he was in Miami, and they made that trade. And the show kind of like the insight I had in one of the more hotly contested fantasy football teams in the Chicago league I was in, and before the 2007 season started, I drafted Tom Brady, Wes Welker, Randy Moss, and the Patriots defense because I knew that they would be up a lot and those Patriots would get a lot of picks. That literally was the greatest fantasy team I ever compiled. And I had Kurt Warner as a backup, and that was the year he blew up with Arizona. So, and then I had Anquan Bolden on his rookie year. So it was pretty stacked.
I think Tom Brady has had just a crazy interesting career to me because when he started out, like you said, a mishmash, a hodgepodge of weapons that he had. Most people said it was Belichick and the defense that led him to those early titles. Then that year with Randy Moss, Wes Welker, he went into another stratosphere with his numbers. And then people were still saying, well, it's due to Randy Moss, it's due to Belichick. Well, then they kind of went back later in his Patriots career to not the real great weapons. I think Brady finally was like, you know what? Screw that. I'm sick of hearing that it's all Belichick. I don't have the weapons. I'm going to go down to Tampa Bay. He did what he did down there, solidified his, legacy. Belichick's legacy is still secure, but now it's more like, was Belichick great, or was he great because of Tom Brady?
I tell you, I mean, Belichick is a genius. I mean, no coach ever denies that he isn't the man in the NFL. But Brady, he did whatever the game called for. He realized in those early years he just didn't have the way he managed the game how he needed to. And it was great when he had then the unbelievable unworldly weapons with Moss and Welker and all that. And then Dante Stallworth, he was a speed demon to stretch the field. But those teams were really, really special. But then, then he switched gears to the 2 tight end set. Mm-hmm. And then he was winning with the Aaron Hernandez and Gronk. And he was doing, I mean, he's done it so many different ways. And he understands the great thing about, Tom is he always understood where, he needed to slow down the game and where he didn't want to expose his defense as much. And, he was such a smart guy. And he was never about Tom. He was always about winning.
Yeah, winning. He took those, less money on his contracts but his wife was making $30 million a year. Talk about that 2 tight end set. It was an interesting dynamic too when Gronk really started getting into that superstar status, because really everybody you couldn't help but love Gronk, but people still hated Brady. So it was kind of an interesting dynamic between those two.
Yeah.
Because I think Gronk, and I could be wrong, but Gronk seems like the type of dude that if he would have gotten with a Johnny I think this is the second podcast in a row I've ripped on Johnny Manziel. But if he'd gotten a quarterback like Manziel or just somebody, he looked up to Brady, and I think Brady took Gronk to the next level.
Well, and there is some truth to that, because Brady, by all accounts, he has never acted like that, that prima donna, that superstar that a lot of these people act like. And even to Belichick saying he's always, when I had him, was the first guy to start running, sprints when we weren't doing well. He was the one that he didn't bitch and complain and moan. He was just doing it because he wanted to show, hey, I'm the face of the team, but I ain't above, reproach. And I think that just was an infectious way for the team to just, always have each other's back and always play for each other because he didn't act like he was too good for any of them.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting that here in 5 years that he will go into Canton with Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. Do you think there's any chance he comes back? Tony Romo made some kind of weird statement before the final retirement thing was right before the first one came out over the weekend. Tony said, I think he's done, but I will say this. I could see Tom coming back 2 years later because he's just some genetic freak and keeps such good care of his body.
Right.
People, he can still do it again.
Sure. Well, when you have somebody like that with the competitive fire, still in damn good shape, just through how many touchdown passes did he throw this year?
Oh, it's the second most ever. I think like 44, 46.
One, you just think of, we talked about Michael Jordan. He took a couple years off, came back and played. Brett Favre, he retired four different times. So that's not outside of the realm of possibility. Bill Simmons, who actually he's a sports writer from Boston, he runs the Ringer website. His theory was that Tom actually wanted to go play for the 49ers at least 1 year because he grew up a big 49ers fan. Montana was his hero. So that was his theory. I don't think it's anywhere outside of the realm of possibilities that Tom comes back at some point. I think he's done, but who knows?
Yeah, and there's a lot of people like, well, Tom's always said when he's done, he's done. But again, you don't know if that fire is still burning in there. And once that season starts,
right,
injury happens, Tom's in great shape. It's the right situation played out. I could see Tom doing it again. Now, obviously, the one thing was Tom had a year left on his contract. So they would be having to get compensation if he did go to another team. So there's that. So I don't know. I suspect he'll stay gone. But if he does,
I mean, there's the NFL will be different without Tom Brady. Now, obviously, young guns are coming up through the system. We've got one of our own, but it's like it's like when Jordan left. It is literally like when Jordan left. I mean, now granted, when Jordan first,
that's a good comparison because I mean, can you name anybody else that has ever left at the top of their game? He led the league in yardage and touchdowns. Now Jordan left winning a championship. Now Peyton Manning won a championship, retired, but he wasn't the same Peyton Manning. No. So Brady is at the very, very top of his game, leading the league in yardage and touchdowns. That's why I'm a little surprised he still walked away, but I don't think he wants to experience that cliff.
Well, it's crazy that you just mentioned his name, Peyton Manning. So I lived in Indianapolis during the Peyton Manning's heyday. And, you know, the argument was always who's better. I mean, you had your contingent of Peyton Manning, like he just doesn't have the team around him that Tom does. He doesn't have the coaches, blah, blah, blah. And then when Manning retired, Brady put down the throttle and I don't think there's any argument to be made.
No. And I don't think anybody will even remotely. Everybody was talking about the new shiny Ferrari and Patrick Mahomes, but I'm telling you right now, unlike Brady, Mahomes isn't going to take reductions in his contract. None of them do. The only one that ever did was Tom. Mm-hmm. Tom was like the leader. Well, and again, you said 30 million, but she makes on the average 45 million a year. So that helps, but
just a bit.
So again, I mean, we won't see that again with the parity in the NFL and with how evenly these teams are. It's just amazing. He was able to go to the Super Bowl that many times and then come away a winner 7 times. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just impossible to do with the salary caps and injuries and and just the parity and stuff. But it was like a perfect storm. You know, he got in that garbage division and he basically pigeonholed to a first round bye every year. So he only had to basically win 2 games every year to get to that Super Bowl. And he always had home field advantage via him being in that garbage division. It was kind of like a perfect storm. Now, he was a great player and they had great teams, but their road every year was so easy.
Yeah. So what do you think he does next?
Wow. You know, that's tough. I mean, he's got his hands obviously in and stuff like this. You know, as the people at home can see, I'm a huge Tom Brady fan. Love all of his gear, the LFG, TB12. But I mean, he's got him in the TB12 with Alex Guerrero. He just opened his own Brady collection. So another, not opposite of this, just a Brady collection of clothes. You know, and I know wants to spend more time with his kids. I could see him. You know, I don't really see him as an announcer. No. Or I mean, he doesn't need any of that.
I did see that the Denver Broncos are coming up for sale.
I did see that, and I know Peyton has his little thumb on that too. Mm-hmm. Peyton Manning. Now, could they do some kind of joint venture?
Oh man,
yeah. I wouldn't see that out of the realm of possibility. I mean, I'm sure he wants to stay somewhat in the football game. You know, he certainly has enough money to make that happen. But at what capacity? I'm sure he could get some kind of partnership group with him, Manning, and who else? You know, to buy a football team. That's an interesting point. You know, I know the Broncos did just come up for sale, and I know Peyton had an interest. Actually, the whole Manning family.
Yeah.
They've been stockpiling money for that occasion. Did
you hear any more about that press conference or the one-day contract? I would love to hear, you know, I want to see, is Belichick going to be there? I know Brady and Robert Kraft have a really unique and special relationship. But
I guarantee Belichick's there. I guarantee even maybe I wouldn't be surprising now. Josh McDaniels just took that job with LA or Oakland. Oh, now that could be how much
Vegas,
fun would
maybe?
or Vegas. Yeah. I'm like, my beloved Raiders. They switch on me all the time. But that wouldn't surprise me, something of that, because he did love Josh McDaniels a lot. Maybe sit out a year or two. And if Derek doesn't, get it together, because I think Vegas at one time was an early possible landing spot before Brady went to Tampa. So there's always that. So you never know. But I mean, I suspect, and I'm pretty sure Belichick will be at that. I would think would be at a press conference tomorrow or whenever they do that 1-day contract,
right.
Because I mean, it looks good. They're always going to be linked together. So obviously it's well deserved, and I think they want to show that they truly appreciated what each one did for the other.
For sure. Now,
who do you think's Tommy's all-time favorite top five? Give me a top five Tommy's favorite top five catchers of the football.
All right, Gronk.
Is he number one?
I think Gronk's number one.
Okay.
I would say Randy Moss is number two.
Okay.
Wes Welker, number three.
Okay.
Julian Edelman, number four.
Okay.
And that number five's tough.
He loved
Hernandez?
No, he loved Deion Branch.
All right, Deion Branch.
Yeah, he was a big guy. Now that Kevin Falk, he used to love him too. Yeah, he was a big fan of him and James White.
Yep. Who would your top five be?
I would say Gronk's number one, just for the simple fact of the longevity. I would going to say Randy. Like Randy would be number one in my eyes because I just think those two together were magical. But I think I would probably put number two in Tom's eyes, Julian Edelman. I think he really loved Julian Edelman.
No, I didn't know if it was coming from, but you said his eyes. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, his eyes. My eyes, man, I'd probably put Moss number one because that was just fun. I mean,
he loved him some Julian Edelman.
Oh, but he even got Randy kind of starting to decline a little bit, and Randy was still. I mean, if he would have got Randy coming right out of college, oh my God, that would have been just disgustingly good.
So my last question for you is, 15 years into the future, who will they say the torch was passed to?
Our boy, Big Dick Joe.
That's
bottom line. Huh?
That's what I wanted you to say. Even the national media is saying that now.
Well, even before the playoffs started, everybody was saying Joe has the it factor. I mean, he's got a lot of the Tom Brady qualities that people gravitate towards. Now, people can gravitate towards it, but in the end, you got to produce on the field, and Joe does. And he was just on Tom's podcast, and he was saying that Joe has all these qualities, but he's actually more talented than Tom ever has been. So, I think we have what did we say here before that game? We're looking at a possible dynasty. Let's hope that comes to fruition, because I think the pieces are in place for this to happen.
Did you listen to that podcast yet?
I did bits and pieces of it. I haven't listened from
I haven't either.
But I will get around to listening to it, because I mean, boy, can we not get enough of Joe Burrow?
No.
Everything he does is just.
I'm supposed to be doing real estate stuff, and I always find myself gravitating to Joe Burrow stuff right now. That's going to be the way that it's going to be for the next 2 weeks.
Yep. Hey, and as well it should be. And I think, I'm telling you, I think, and I want to say one other thing. I was also shocked Tom stepped away without knowing what Aaron Rodgers was going to do first. Because if Aaron Rodgers takes the Denver job, boy, that NFC is just wide open. That AFC will be slam packed. But that NFC, I mean, Tom could literally probably pick at least one or two more Super Bowls.
He doesn't need anything else on his legacy. I mean, it's secure. I mean, it feels surreal. I mean, I'll be honest, I just don't like it. The league is better with him in it.
Yeah, much better. And I just don't see anybody coming close. But again, Drew Brees was right there. He kind of petered out at the end with his arm. So, I mean, could somebody with an extra game now in the schedule? But a lot of things got to come into play. I mean, but the quarterback isn't allowed being hit now. So there's that. I mean, obviously, as you saw from the 60s, 70s, 80s, I mean, there's 70s and 80s quarterbacks.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
they would get anything for like a 28 touchdown, 14 interception. That was a great year.
Right.
And then they would hit close to 3,000 yards and they'd be like all pro. Things have changed. That 5,000 is like the really great years. And now you're, at least upper 30s to mid 40 touchdowns every year for the good quarterbacks. So again, it could still, he could be, but I don't think anybody will ever reach 10 Super Bowls. I mean, that's just, look at Mahomes. He had the perfect storm and he made it to 2 and he's only won 1. So, I mean, it's hard to do.
Rodgers, everybody says, oh, he's the greatest thrower of the football. It's not. He's got 1 Super Bowl, and I'm not poo-pooing that. It's just tough as shit to win a Super Bowl.
It is, but I will
unless you're Tom Brady.
Well, I will say this. Well, there's a lot of things I could say is why Aaron didn't win it, whereas Tom would, because Aaron's a prima donna. And he makes everything about him, where Tom makes everything about the team. But I will say Aaron Rodgers is probably, him or Dan Marino, the best pure thrower of the football ever in the NFL. I will say that. But
I agree with that.
Yeah. I mean, now, Patrick Mahomes, best thrower off platform ever. But Aaron Rodgers just best pure throw because he always has he never lets that receiver break stride with his catches, where a lot of quarterbacks, they just haven't mastered that.
Josh Allen's right there with him as far as off platform.
Yeah. Well, Josh Allen's now, he's just got a cannon. I mean, he's got a cannon. Plus, he just adds that. He's as big as a house, and he's running. I mean, just he adds a whole nother dimension. Whereas Lamar, he's fast and quicker, but he's like a twig. Whereas nobody wants to even mess with Josh Allen. But again, AFC is loaded. But I'm glad who we got on our team with Joe Burrow, because I tell you, the Cincinnati fans are going to be in for a treat these next, bare minimum, next 5 years. But I'm telling you, these next 2 to 3 years are going to be unbelievably special. Let's win one next weekend. And then, if we can win that one and then get him a good line, holy cow. I'm saying we could literally break the all-time scoring record for most points in the season by a team if we get Joe a line. I'm telling you, our skill guy, now you have to stay healthy and stuff, but our skill guys are so good, and Joe is so good. And he's doing this without any line. When he gets and you even said an average line, or if they do something like KC did and get all these all pros and then draft a good one or two and they end up hitting, boy, man, it is going to be tough sledding for some teams.
Somebody hose you down.
Oh my God. Hey. All right. Well, hey, I appreciate everybody joining us. Obviously, as again, it's a sad, sad day in the NFL world with one Tommy Terrific. I guess me and Bill is blushing one more time, aren't we, William?
Salute, Tom. Thanks, buddy.
Today to you, we salute. Thank you for the 22 years of good memories, Tommy Terrific. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. See you next time.
Bye.